You're wanting to make sense of some of the big changes coming to Social Security in 2026, then today's podcast is for you. I have Social Security expert and veteran and consultant for right around 50 years, or maybe a little over now, Mr. Jim Blair, today to discuss several things. Number one is we're going to discuss the recent changes, including the upcoming COLA. We're going to talk about changes in the annual earnings test and maximum taxable income amount. We're going to discuss situational Social Security and filing strategies such as spousal and survival benefits, as well as take a look at the Social Security Fairness Act and more. Mr. Jim, welcome back to the Agape podcast.
Thanks for having me. Good to be here.
Yeah, so let's dive right in. Let's talk about these recent changes upcoming for COLA in 2026. Will you take us down that road and talk about that and what's that going to mean for those watching today?
Sure. The cost of living adjustments are automatic. Congress passed that way back in 1972. So what we look at is that consumer price index, the CPIW. And usually that's announced on the news channels, usually around the 13th of each month. Okay. But they'll look at the third quarter average, so that's July, August, and September. And they looked at that for this year, at 2025, and compared that to the same period for last year. And we saw that the consumer price index rose by 2.8%.
Okay.
That means automatically people receiving Social Security receive a 2.8% cost of living adjustment. Now, interestingly enough, you don't actually have to be receiving Social Security to see that increase in your benefit.
Okay.
If you are 62 or older, so anybody that turns 62 in 2025 will see that 2.8% increase added to their benefit when they do eventually file.
Okay.
So yes, people receiving benefits receive that, but also if you have an old benefit statement and you look at it, well, you could add 2.8%. Although I would suggest pulling up a new statement.
Yeah. So what does that kind of amount to on average for most Social Security benefit people? Is that a certain amount that they can expect to just be added?
Well, the easy way is just multiply what you receive, your
Okay.
gross amount, by 2.8%. Technically, they take your full retirement age benefit, and then they call that primary insurance amount, PIA.
Right.
They increase that by 2.8%. If you began benefits at age 62, then they'll reduce it by the number of months that you took it early. Or if you waited beyond your full retirement age, they'll increase it by the delayed retirement credits that you earn.
Got it.
That means technically the people that waited till 70 will see a little higher increase than the folks that took it at age 62, but everybody's going to see a cost of living adjustment. Now, this will be in their January payment. Payments are always a month behind. So technically, the cost of living adjustment is December. People see that in their January payments.
Yeah, and I don't want to spend a lot of time here because we talked about this in our previous two interviews that we had. But even this morning, I got another question from somebody who came to my Medicare seminar in Alabama, and the question was, I'm going to stay working. I don't plan to retire. My husband is at his full retirement age. I'm at my full retirement age. Should I take my Social Security now, even though I don't need it, or should I wait to age 70? Will you just talk about that? I don't want to chase this rabbit for too long, but this is a question that keeps coming up. In that scenario, I basically told the lady that if you really don't need it now, then why don't you just wait till age 70 when your check's going to be a little bit bigger? Or if you don't want to wait to age 70 and you're at your full retirement age, why wouldn't you take it now? So let me hear your thoughts on that real quickly.
Sure. If you're under full retirement age, you have to take into account, if you're working, what your income is.
That's right.
Now, once you reach full retirement age, that goes away. You can work and earn as much as you want, or you can, and still receive your Social Security benefit. It's going to be less than if you wait till 70, but if your full retirement age is 67 and you wait till 70, you gave up benefits for 3 years to get a 24% increase. Usually that takes about 12 and a half years to make that up. But if you don't need the money, if your health is in good health, then it may make some sense to do that. Some other things will factor in. If at some point you may be eligible for a survivor benefit, so your spouse is a higher earner than you are, you
Sure.
might not want to wait till 70 because
Yeah.
eventually you may step into their shoes. So lots of things to consider, but definitely up until full retirement age, if you don't need it, I think it's a good idea to wait. Now, it's my personal opinion.
Yeah.
Uh, but waiting till 70, that one's a little tougher. But
Yeah.
you want to look too, are you eligible eventually for a spousal benefit? So when your spouse files for Social Security, will you be eligible?
Sure.
And if you will, you probably want to take your own at full retirement age.
Yeah, and if you want to know more about that, if you're watching this today, you can go back and watch our previous two interviews. I'll put those links down in the video description. And by the way, while we're here at the stopping point, take a moment. If you're getting value out of this so far, take a moment to comment, like, subscribe for us. Throughout the video, if there's some questions that we don't answer clearly, or you just have some additional questions, put those in the comment section and we'll make sure to get those answers to you. All right, let's move on to number 2, changes in the annual earnings test and the maximum taxable income amount. Why don't you take us down that road for a minute and break that down?
Sure. If you want to begin your Social Security benefits before your full retirement age, you're subject to what's called the annual earnings test.
Sure.
And what they do is, depending on how much you earn, they will withhold $1 of benefits for every $2 you go over that amount.
Right.
Well, in 2025, you could earn $23,400 before they affect your benefit. That increased for 2026. That's gone up to $24,480. So if you earn over $24,480, they'll hold back $1 of your benefits for every $2 you go over. They will do that until the year you reach your full retirement age. The year you reach full retirement age, the amount you're allowed to earn goes way up. It's up to went from $62,160 to $65,160, and then they withhold $1 for every 3 you go over. But that only includes the months before your full retirement age. That month you hit full retirement age, this earnings test goes away.
Okay.
Now, a lot of times people will hear, well, I get that money back, so why shouldn't I file? Well, what happens is when you reach full retirement age, Social Security will recalculate your benefit. If your full retirement age is 67 and you file at 62, you're filing 60 months before your full retirement age. So Social Security will reduce your benefit 30%. Well, let's just say you only get 6 checks a year because of your earnings. When you reach full retirement age, they'll look and say, okay, we reduced your benefits 60 months, but only paid you 30 checks. So we're going to change that reduction factor from 60 to 30. And now instead of a 30% reduction, it's a 15% reduction. So you get that increase. It's permanent increase. And if you live long enough, you get all your money back.
Yeah. So one of the questions that I get asked when I'm working with Medicare beneficiaries is, let's say someone's hitting their full retirement age in the middle of the year. How do they calculate that? Like, in other words, let's say they earned over the limit they were allowed up until the middle of the year, but they reached their full retirement age. How does that work if someone hits their FRA in the middle of the year in regards to, will they be penalized?
Yeah. So if you reach full retirement age, say in July, and you are working, then if you want to collect benefits January through June, the earnings test will apply. Okay. And whatever you earned in those 6 months will be used to determine should you lose any of your benefits. But starting with July, even if you earned way over that $65,000, doesn't matter. Starting in July, the earnings test doesn't apply, and you'll receive your benefits. No reduction because of your earnings starting in July in that case.
Yeah, that's a very popular question that I get asked. And let me ask this. I know we talked about this briefly in our previous interviews. How does the government determine that? Or how could someone today who's watching this go find out what their full retirement age is? What's the easiest way to go find that out?
Yeah, I encourage everyone to create the online account.
Okay.
It's on ssa.gov.gov, and you create this online account with Social Security, and you can look at your benefit statement anytime you want. And it's not real time, but it's real close. If
Yeah.
they had any updates today, say your 2024 wages were posted to your earnings record today, it would
Right.
show up tomorrow on your statement. So if you haven't done so already, create the online account. And if you have, you can go in there and look, and that benefit statement will show you your benefit at your full retirement age.
Yeah, I recommend all of our people we sit down with Medicare to make sure they go and create that one. It's surprising to me how many people haven't done that, but it has a lot of information in there, especially if you're getting ready to turn 65 or looking at drawing your Social Security. All right, let's move on to number 3, discussing situational Social Security and filing strategies. An example of that would be like spousal and survival benefits.
Sure. First of all, everybody's situation is different. So just
Right,
because your neighbor filed at a certain point doesn't mean you should do that. You want
right.
to look at your situation. Are you eligible on your own work record? Will you be eligible for a spousal benefit? So you have to take that into consideration. Now, Social Security requires you to take your own benefit first, and then if there's a spousal benefit payable, as soon as it's payable, they will start paying you that additional amount. Uh, you're going to want to look at how much am I going to receive on my own, how much can I receive from my spouse, and there are some calculators on the Social Security website that will help you figure that out. Um, as far as spousal benefits are concerned, technically at full retirement age, you're eligible for a benefit equal to half of your spouse's full
Hmm.
retirement age benefit. So if their full retirement age benefit is $2,500, you're eligible for $1,250 off of their work record. But if you're eligible for $1,000 on your own, the way Social Security pays you is they'll pay you $1,000 on your own and $250 from your spouse,
Hmm.
and you still end up with the $1,250. Uh, so spousal benefits can be effective. There's also divorce spouse benefits. So just because you're not currently married doesn't mean that you may not be able to draw as an ex-spouse. And there's a couple interesting rules with that. To draw as an ex-spouse, you have to be 62, single, can't be married and draw off of your ex,
Mm-hmm.
but you had to be married to them for 10 years or more. Now, if you've been divorced for less than 2 years, they have to be drawing their benefit before you get your ex-spouse benefits. But if you've been divorced for 2 years or longer, you can draw off of their work record as long as they're age 62, even if they haven't applied on their own yet. So lots of different situations to look at. Then, uh, is there a deceased spouse in your history? So if you have someone you were married to that passed away, or even a divorced spouse that you were married to for 10 years or more that passed away, you can draw off of their work record. And you can actually draw a survivor benefit as early as age 60.
Hmm.
So you're going to want to look to see, do I have benefits available under that situation? And if you do, that's an interesting one. You can take the lower benefit first. So if your survivor benefit's lower than your own, you take the survivor benefit at age 60 and switch to your own as late as age 70. That way, you've increased your benefit, but along the way, you still drew something from a Social Security record. Or you take your own at 62 and the survivor benefit at full retirement age. So lots of different situations there to look at.
Yeah, and I mean it can be very complex. So like let's just say somebody's watching this today and they go, "Hey, I may fall under this divorce spouse category." Obviously, they can create an SSA.gov account, but they really need to call in to someone, right? Because this is a little bit more complex than just going into a SSA.gov account and really just talking to an expert. Talk about that just for a second.
Yeah, the SSA.gov account shows you what you're eligible on your record, but not
Hmm.
off of anybody else's.
Yeah.
So you would need to call Social Security and get that information from them. Now they're going to want proof. They want to see that you were actually
Hmm.
married to that person for 10 years or more, and you're technically eligible for a benefit. You're not just out there fishing to see
Yeah.
what your ex would be drawing, but um, they will make an appointment for you. You can go into your local office, show them your divorce decree, If it shows the date of marriage on there, that's all you need. And they'll see you were married 10 years or more, and they'll
Mm,
provide you with what you're eligible for off of that person's work record. They won't give you any information about your ex. Now, you need to know their social security number. If you don't, it becomes a little more difficult, but social security can oftentimes come up with that number depending on the information you had.
sure.
Your ex's name, date of birth, place of birth, maybe their mother's name, that kind of thing. Uh, and as long as it's not a real common name, like say John Smith, they can usually come up with it. If it's a real common name, there's still so many. It's really
Yeah.
hard to come up with. But um, the benefits can be payable, and you need to see what those would be.
Yeah, and let me ask you this, because I know last year when we talked, there was kind of this, I guess, fear that people were not going to be able to go into local offices anymore, or there was some type of initiative where basically Social Security was pushing to call more, like call in versus going into local offices. Did that change, or in many areas, are people still able to go locally?
Yeah, you can still go in locally, but what they've require now is you have an appointment. Used to, you could just walk in.
Yeah,
Whenever you were ready, you get in your car and drive to the local office and walk in. Now they require you call the Social Security 800 number,
yeah,
772-1213, and make an appointment. The good news about that is when you walk in, if there's a whole bunch of people in front of you, when you just walked in, you could wait several hours. Now you have an appointment. But you can still go into the office should you need to. There are a few exceptions where you can just walk in, but that's mainly if someone's homeless, or
yeah,
if they're in serious need of a benefit. They're not receiving their checks and they need to maybe get an
sure.
immediate payment, that type of thing. But other than that, make an appointment.
Yeah, I always tell people looking at going on Medicare, we always like to start 90 days out, especially if they are not on Social Security, which means they will not get their Medicare, automatically enrolled. And I always tell them start 90 days out, because when they're calling in, whether they're setting a phone appointment or trying to go in, a lot of times these appointments are several weeks down the road. Are you seeing that across the country? It is like, hey, just because they call in doesn't mean they're going to get an appointment this week in some areas.
That's correct. It's
Yeah.
the appointment calendars are pretty full. So even say you're just going to file for Medicare, you can
Sure.
call, say,
Yeah.
4 months in advance and make an
Yeah.
appointment within that 3 month window. And that might be a little better. The earlier you call, the better in that situation. But yeah, it's unless somebody before you canceled an appointment, a lot of times those appointment calendars are out pretty far.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's also, under this situational category that we're under, let's talk a little bit about the Social Security Fairness Act. Can you define what that is, and just really explain it where the audience can understand?
Sure. This was a law signed by President Biden back in January of 2025.
Okay.
It technically was effective January of 2024. And what it did was it changed the rules for what we call windfall elimination provision and government pension offset.
Okay.
These two provisions applied to people who were eligible for a pension from work, not covered by Social Security.
Hmm.
Oftentimes, that's our teachers, police, firemen, some older civil servants, federal
Hmm.
employees under the old civil service program. So they worked for a job where they didn't pay Social Security tax, and they're eligible for a pension from that job, like your state teacher's retirement. And what happened, if along the way you worked and had enough work under Social Security to be eligible for a benefit based on other work, they changed how your benefit was computed and lowered the amount you received. And at the point they changed the law, it could be as much as $600 less per month. You were guaranteed something, but it lowered the amount of benefit you received. The
Hmm.
government pension offset said if you're eligible off of somebody else's work record. So you're eligible as a spouse,
Hmm.
ex-spouse, or a surviving spouse. They took 2/3 of your non-covered pension and subtracted it from your Social Security benefit. In a lot of cases, that completely wiped out what somebody could receive. So a lot of times they never even filed for the benefit. Well, the windfall generally there's no problem because they received something, so they filed for those benefits. Social Security knew who they were, and they made the adjustments to their records. A lot of people received some back pay, and then their monthly benefit increased. But the folks with the government pension offset, those concern me a little bit because a lot of times people just never applied. So Social Security doesn't know who's now eligible for a benefit that wasn't before they changed this law. So someone receives a benefit from work not covered by Social Security, and you think you may be eligible as a spouse, ex-spouse, or surviving spouse, or just not sure, call the Social Security 800 number and make an appointment. Because even though technically the law was effective January 2024, if you need to file a new application, they'll only go back a maximum of 6 months. So every month that goes by, you lose some benefits. Call Social Security, make an appointment to file, and they'll let you know. You know what? Your own benefit's too high. You're not eligible off of that person's work record. Better safe than sorry. Don't assume. Sure. If people assume they're not eligible, a lot of times they lose money.
Yeah, I think that was great to bring it up because maybe there's some people watching today that could qualify for that. And like you said, don't assume anything. Just call in, talk to the experts, get that appointment set up. Let me ask this as we get ready to close today. What are some other scenarios or some other things in your line of work? Because you're a Social Security consultant. You're all over the country. You're talking to people all over the country. What are some other questions or some other situations that you feel would be good to bring up in this podcast before we close today?
Yeah, a lot of people are curious about spousal benefits that we talked about. Sometimes they think, well, my spouse was a real high earner and I was just I was a stay-at-home mom or dad and my earnings weren't that high, but they're still not eligible for a spousal benefit. And that's because the way Social Security computes benefits, you get a better percentage return of what your earnings were if you were a lower earner than a higher earner. They still get more money. And so oftentimes they're not eligible for the spousal benefit, but they need to figure that out. Are there children involved? So do you have a child under the age of 18 or between 18 and 19 and still in high school? And for retirement, I see this one more than the others. Maybe you have a child who was disabled before the age of 22. When you file for your retirement, or if you become disabled and file for disability on your own, that child can be eligible off of your work record as well. And a lot of times they're receiving what we call SSI, Supplemental Security Income. This is a needs-based program. The benefit payable off of this record is limited. It's even with the increase coming up, it's a little under $1,000 a month what they're eligible for. So they might be now eligible off of the parent's work record. And that oftentimes factors into someone's decision when to file, when not to file.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems so overwhelming. I know that, like I say that coming from a Medicare guy, because a lot of people that I talk to, they're like, this Medicare stuff is just so overwhelming and confusing. Obviously, you're in that lane every day. I'm in the Medicare lane every day. But once again, just want to encourage you, if you're watching this today, don't assume anything. Just call in and talk to an expert. One question I do want to ask, and I think I've asked this every time we've gotten together, because I get this question all the time. I heard Social Security is going to run out of money in 20 so-and-so, and I don't want to spend a lot of time here, but now fast forward a year. So last time we brought it up was last year. And I can't tell you how many times people have brought it up sitting in my office or on a Zoom call or over the phone, talking about the reason they want to go in and take the Social Security now is because they're afraid it's not going to be here when they get to that age of when they want to take it out. Will you just take a little bit of time once again to kind of explain that and just give us a solid expert answer to that?
Sure. First of all, that's the very worst reason to take your Social Security is because they're going to run out of money. So let's take the worst case scenario, and that means Congress does nothing.
Right.
They don't make any changes to Social Security. And about 2033, the surplus that Social Security has will be gone. Well, by law, they can't pay out any more in benefits than they receive.
Sure.
So they'll still have money coming in. People are still going to be working, hopefully,
Yeah.
and their earnings are subject to the Social Security tax, the FICA tax.
Right.
So people will be paying in, and Social Security will still has enough money to cover about 80% of their obligation. What that means is you're going to receive 80% of what you should. So you get a 20% reduction in your benefit uh, is a worst case scenario. Uh, Social Security doesn't go bankrupt. They don't lose all of their money. The vast majority of their funding still continues, but they don't have, with no changes, they don't have enough money coming in to cover all of their obligations. Now, every year they raise the limit that you pay Social Security tax on. In 2025, it was 176,100, raised in 2026 to 184,500. Probably what's going to happen is they're going to raise that maybe to 250,000, or they may say, okay, we'll still cut it off at the 184.5, but if you earn over 400,000, it'll kick back in, bringing more money into the program. Because there's only two ways to fix this: bring more money in with taxes, or cut benefits. And
Sure.
nobody seems to be in the mood to cut benefits. So they're going to have to figure out a way to bring money in. But worst case scenario, you're going to receive 80% of your benefit.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I can't tell you how many times I hear that, and people bring it up in conversations, just a lot of this fear around them running out of money. And I love that what you said, it's like the worst reason to take your benefits early. And I know it's your opinion, but kind of go back to what you said in the beginning. You strongly recommend that people wait to their FRA age, right? Their full retirement age. Is that what you were saying earlier, or did I misinterpret that?
No, that's correct. Now, there are a few situations where 62 is a good age. Here's a situation: a couple has a pretty good difference in their ages. So the
Sure.
higher earner may be 5, 6, 7 years older than the lower earner. Well, statistically, the lower earner is going to survive the higher earner in that case and step into their shoes and receive their benefit. So maybe
Right.
taking benefits at 62
Yeah.
might work for that person. But overall, for the vast majority of people, unless you stop working, you just don't have any other source of income. If you can wait till full retirement age, overall, you're going to get more money from the Social Security Administration. Takes about 12 years break even point. So about age 79, you've received the same amount of money from Social Security, whether you start at 62 or you wait till 67.
Hmm.
And the average survival rate for a female in her 60s is 87, a male in his 60s, did I, I hope I said 87, a male in his 60s is 84.
Hmm.
Social Security says half of the people will live to their upper 80s, early 90s, and a quarter of the folks will live to be 95 or older. Now,
Wow.
we don't know who that is,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
you look at your health, your family history, that kind of thing. But I really like full retirement age over age 62 if possible.
Well, no, I greatly appreciate you coming on again and sharing all of this with our audience, because this is a very popular topic. Once again, before we close today, anything else that you think you need to share with our audience, or anything else for 2026 going forward that they need to know about?
The biggest thing for people to understand is they need to make a plan and
Yeah.
figure out, okay, if I file at 62, what does that mean? If I wait till full retirement age or age 70, what does that mean? So you want to look at your benefits to figure out in the long run what is best for you. Are there any children involved, ex-spouses, deceased spouses, all of that you want to look at before you apply. You
Sure.
have a limited amount of time to withdraw an application if you make a mistake. And if you withdraw, you got to pay the money back. So it's got to come from somewhere. So make that informed decision before you apply. If that means you need to speak with someone, then speak with someone. And I think oftentimes that's money well spent.
Yeah, absolutely. I always tell people with their Medicare, always start as early as you can, at least start getting an idea. Like I have 64-year-olds calling me, they don't even turn 65 until next year, but at least we can give them at least a base, some nuts and bolts, some things to get them prepared. And that way they're planning throughout this whole year. And it always seems when we do that, that they have a better understanding and they're better ready to go when that time comes, whether they're taking Social Security out with their Medicare at the same time, or whether they're just going on Medicare and they're going to push their Social Security back. So, yeah, I think that's great advice. And Jim, thank you so much for coming on today, spending about 30 minutes with us, sharing your expertise with us. I know this is going to bring tons of value to the audience when we release this. And by the way, if you are turning 65 in 2026, then I want you to go watch my brand new Medicare 101 webinar here.